not know what he's doing.
Yeah. What's that? It's Michaela.
Oh, sorry, see, my arm's bad. I just thought I was trying to throw that to you. I was trying to throw that to you and I missed. Hey, Jordan.
Yeah.
I went in the beginning so I can have fun with Yeah, be healthy. Healthy pets.
So you're gonna be out for
Yeah, there was like, it was so deep that they had to do like 8
Inside now, huh?
Yeah, I was way up. He's trying to steal a ball. So if I fell in half an hour, which I doubt, then you can watch it. Keys and all that boy's playing with.
Let's shoot. Are you?
What's your best 100 free time now?
Here we go.
Start. I was born in Ironwood, Michigan in 1913, November 25th. When I was born, I had a brother, William, 6 years older than I am, and a sister, Gertrude, 3 years older than I was. It wasn't until later that I had a sister born 6 years younger than I am. So anyway, we lived there until I was in kindergarten. First grade, we moved to Oshkosh, and then I went to St. Peter's School in Oshkosh till third grade. Then we moved to Neenah, and I went to St. Patrick's School in Neenah until 7th grade. Then we moved to Milwaukee, and I went to St. Anne's School for 1 year, and then went over to St. Thomas Aquinas because my mother was all Irish, and she couldn't stand to live in this German neighborhood in 37th and Wright. It was all German. I'd go to the store, and I was the only one that talked English. I think they all talked German there. The butcher would give us a big piece of bologna to take home, and we'd go there to buy something. And anyway, then we moved to St. Thomas Aquinas. We lived right across the way from on 350 Vine. So I was very close to school. Then I graduated from 8th grade there. Then I went on to high school, to Washington High School. And those were my 4 good years. I had fun years at 4 years of high school. I did quite a few things. Didn't miss any of the dances or anything because I always seemed to have a boyfriend. Good go with. So anyway.
Well, let's going way through history so fast here. Let's first talk about your birth, a little bit about your parents and your grandparents here. Tell me first about your grandparents.
My grandpa Sid, I remember the best because he died when I was a teenager.
Okay.
So I remembered him. We lived in Neenah. He lived in Fond du Lac, and he had Gertrude, and we'd take the interurban to Fond du Lac. And then he'd take us for the whole day, and he'd buy us, we'd come back just loaded with gifts. I especially had a beautiful doll of those glass dolls that were so lovely. I had it fixed for Nancy, but she broke it fine. I didn't have to do one either. But anyway, he was so good to us, and we always had a fun day with him.
So Grandpa Zinn was your father's...
And then my grandma Zinn died when she was quite young. She died of heart trouble.
Okay.
And I was 4 years old when she died, and she was in, they were taking care of her in Oshkosh, and Gene Zinn and I were both the same age. We were there, because it was his grandmother too. And we weren't supposed to go near the room, but we'd wait till they opened the door, then we'd quick run to the room so we could look inside and see her. She'd always be coughing, but anyway, she died quite
So she
young.
passed away when you
Yeah.
were pretty young. So this is your father's parents.
Yeah, and then my grandfather never married after that.
Okay. All right. And then how about your mother's parents?
And then my mother's parents were, my grandma, I knew her. She lived with us until I was in 7th grade when she died. But before that, she lived with us for quite a bit of the time. My grandfather, I didn't know at all. Grandpa Dowling, I didn't know. He died he died shortly after I was born.
What was his first name?
His first name was, I'm not sure now. We haven't done it. I
Okay.
go to see the graves all the time. I
But-
can't
but he
remember.
passed-
John, I think it was John.
So he passed away soon
He
after.
passed
you were-
away, when I was 4 years old. 2, I think, or 4.
Okay.
So I never did know, about 2 years old I was when he died. Anyway, I didn't really know him, but I know of him, and he had a leg amputated. We always figured he had diabetes, but they never knew that in those
Sure.
years. But he had nobody knew why he had his leg amputated. I'm sure it was because he had diabetes. And then my Uncle Frank, who was in the, working for the railroad, had a leg off because he caught in between the railroad track, the railroad cars, and he had a leg off. So when he came to my grandpa's funeral, they said it was so sad because he had a leg off too, and he was just young, in his 20s. Because he died young.
Now your parents' names were what?
Florence and William.
Florence and Williams. Do you have any idea how they met and when they got together?
No, but they went to they lived in Oshkosh, both of them, and the boys, he and his brother, both went to business school, and in those days there weren't too many boys going on to school like that after high school, went to business school. And so I remember that they said they always came past their home, the Dowling house, and Grandpa Dowling would say, there goes the Zinn boys all dressed up for school, you know. But then I guess my father dated my Aunt Dee first, and then he met Mother, and then I guess he forgot about Dee.
Or Aunt Dee, and then
Yeah, I went through
All right.
Florence,
All right.
yeah.
And-
I think they were married quite young too.
Now, where are you in the ages as far as you have older
Well,
sisters?
yeah,
you said?
William is 6 years older than I was, and Gertrude 3 years older, and then Ruth Ann is 6 years younger than I was.
Okay. So what did your father do?
My father was a bookkeeper and accountant.
Bookkeeper. Seems like you moved around quite a lot.
Oh yeah, well that was because we had the jobs. See, in Ironwood, when he worked in Ironwood, my uncle too was Ironwood. He was a big shot in Ironwood, and so was my father kind of at that time. And we had money, and we built a beautiful home, and we had a maid. I still remember the maid. My mother would say, "What time is it?" She'd say, "I don't know what time is it." And she'd say, "You's come for dinner. You's come for dinner." I think we could have done better, but that's what we had. But anyway, when we moved from there, see that my father had no problem with drinking, so my mother, I think, didn't like it. Ironwood wanted to get away from there. Well, when she got away from there, he got away from his usual job too, and it wasn't good. You know, he had such a good job there. So he worked in Oshkosh for a while. I never really was crazy about Oshkosh. I don't know why. I had a lot of relatives there too, the Gibsons and all, and there were real good people there that ran so much, but I just didn't like Oshkosh. But I like Neenah much better. And then Neenah, Rosemary's father and my father had a pool hall called Zinn and McLaughlin Park. Pool hall?
Pool hall.
Yeah, Virgil hall, whatever they called it. Yeah. So they had that. So I used to like it because I'd go to school and get a Ziegler chocolate bar, eat it, going to school, which wasn't good for me either.
So do I understand correctly? And you lived in Ironwood when you were younger.
Yes, I did until almost first grade.
Okay. So almost first grade.
Yeah.
And so your father was an accountant up there.
Yeah.
Then you moved to Oshkosh and
Yeah.
Neenah. Okay.
And then Neenah. And then we lived in Neenah for. When I was in Oshkosh, I should mention that I woke up one night to go to the bathroom, and I saw an angel coming down the hallway, and I was sure it was an angel. And I kept yelling at my grandmother, "He's coming near your house, and he's coming near your room. The angel's coming near your room." And everybody said I didn't see an angel, but I saw it as plain as day. I thought it.
Yeah.
They always made fun of me for that, but I saw that. But
So
I
you
did.
saw an angel, but nobody
I
else
did.
believed.
Nobody else believed me, but I did.
That's great.
But anyway, that was in Oshkosh. Well, in Neenah, we had a nice home there. We had 4 bedrooms. My grandmother lived with us, as I say. She had she used to have her haircut. She had it done up, and then she'd have a little plug made of her hair that she took off, you know. And then I'd see, if the company was there, I'd say, "Oh, my grandmother keeps her hair in the drawer." I don't think they were very happy with me at times. But anyway, then we moved to Milwaukee. That was as I say, we moved into a German neighborhood, and that was so German. I mean, everybody talked German. And they had German ways about them. That was the first time I ever knew that kids went outside of their house and say, oh, Jesse, do you have want to play?
Okay.
And that's what the German kids said.
Well, isn't Zinn somewhere in Germany?
No, my father is half German. His mother was all French, and his father was all German.
Okay.
So he was
All right.
half and half. And then my mother was all Irish.
All Irish. So did you move to Milwaukee because of your father's job again?
Yeah, and Mame and Rosemary and them had moved off, and for some reason or other, my mother and Mame always stuck together. Wherever one went, the other one wanted to live, so we moved to Milwaukee too.
Right.
But we didn't have a lot of money, but we did. I enjoyed being, when we moved to St. Thomas's, I liked that better.
Who was me? Talk about.
Mame is my aunt, Mame.
Okay.
That was my mother's sister. They had 4 Dowling girls. There were Aunt Catherine and Mame and Dee and my mother. She was the baby. And then they had 2 boys, Willie and Frank. But Willie died when he was 8 years old. But he was supposed to be, before he died, he saw this beautiful woman. He said, oh, they're going to say beautiful woman just before he died. He was 8 years old. But that must have been hard for my grandmother. And I think they didn't have any money at that time either. But anyway, we liked it as 35th and Vine was my favorite place because we walked to Washington High from there, and that was quite a walk from 35th and Vine to Washington High. But I had 4 years of fun, but the best part of my years were at Kachi Lake. For 2 seasons, we took a cottage for the season, for the whole season. That was more fun. We swam all the time and just had so much fun. And then we'd go to Silver Lake dancing every night practically. Silver Lake had dancing. And then you could go out and between the dances they had a place you could sit outside at the front of the lake and you'd hear the pretty music. It was lovely. And so this one night my mother, nobody took us. Richard and I were sitting there and she said, well, for a change you're staying home. She said, nobody, you aren't going to Silver Lake. With that, the door, there's a knock on the door with Jack Lucas. He said, want to go to Silver Lake? Oh, sure.
Who's Jack Lucas?
Jack Lucas is a friend of mine, a high school friend.
Okay.
And he was going with a friend of mine too, but he was a friend of all of us. So he was going to drive there, he was going to take us all there because he was a good dancer and liked to dance. So we had more fun there. We had more fun on Kachi Lake. And we had...
Now, was it just your family that went, or...?
Yeah, just our family. And Rosemary and me and all that times too. And then Richard and I would sleep till almost noon because we'd be out of Silver Lake. Then we'd always make bacon tomato sandwiches at noon. My mother would never get us up, but when Mame was there, she'd make Rosemary get up. I don't know for what. She'd make her get up. So yeah, Rosemary hated that. She'd try to be over to our house more than anything because she didn't have any sisters. She just had 2 brothers. And she could stay all night at our house. That was the best thing she could do. She didn't have to get up so early in the morning.
This is when you were in high school?
Yeah, I was in high school, yeah. And then Kachi, the priest, we had 2 priests, Father O'Malley and Father McCreshton, Father Riley. And anyway, they used to come up to the cottage once every 2 weeks or something like that. And we'd jump off their shoulders. We had the best time with them. They were just good sports. And on the way one time, they found 2 little kittens, a gray and white one and a black and white one, and brought them to us. We kept them from then on. They were so funny. We had them for the summer too, and then we'd have carnivals going on at night. We'd try to go to sleep on the porch, and we'd hear all these songs playing and everything. But it was the most fun those 2 years of Kachi. That's why I still like Golden Mass and Kachi Lake. It's my favorite lake.
Would you tell us a little bit about your brothers and sisters and some early memories playing with them, and then what did they learn?
Yeah, William was an accountant, bookkeeper too.
William was?
Yes, when he died, he was an accountant for O'Hara's company.
Casino.
Reno. That's what he was doing. And then Gertrude, she went to state teachers for a while to be a teacher, but she didn't finish. And she worked at Charles of the Ritz Beauty Parlor at Chapman's as a receptionist for years. And they kept her hair blonde, and then she got so many pretty clothes there, discount prices. She enjoyed it. Then with Anne, she was office worker. She was kind of an accountant too, or she did. And anyway.
Were your kids pretty close as you were
Oh
growing
yeah,
up?
Gertrude couldn't be a better sister. I tell you, I gave her trouble. This one night, it was Christmas Eve, and we went to, Mother sent us to the creamery to get the creamery. They had milk and cream. We had to pick up some cream. We went on the way home. We hardly got out of there, and Santa Claus came past his sleigh, And I thought he was going to see me. I said, Virgil, he saw me and he's not going to bring me any gifts. I started crying. She had a terrible time getting me home. She said, he is true. I said, no, he's not. He saw me and I'm not supposed to be out. Anyway, she was good. And then at night, if it would be thundering or storming, and we had twin beds. And I'd get up and jiggle and say, I got to go to the bathroom and I didn't want to go alone, you know. Or want to get in bed with her, that was it. And she'd have to get in bed with her, this twin bed. And she'd go to the bathroom with me in the middle of the night when I wanted to. She was such a good sister to me. She always was good to me.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah.
So what year did you graduate from high school?
1931.
1931.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about that time. The Depression was just
Oh,
starting to
yeah.
roll.
Yes, that was. And we didn't have much. I went to summer school because I wanted to go into nursing and I had to take chemistry at summer school. And I remember one morning, I think, all we had was some peaches there. We had to take the mold off the peaches to eat the peaches for breakfast. It was terrible. We just had potatoes fixed every such way because potatoes were the cheapest.
Did your father lose his job?
Yes, he did. And we were really, and Ed did. The Dolphins were better off than we were. But he seemed to have a job.
Right.
But then I went to see teachers. I was going to be a primary kindergarten teacher, I thought.
Okay.
And I went there for a year, and then I decided I wanted to go into nurses training. So then I went to St. Joe's to see about the different nurses schools and decided I'm in Misericordia. And when we went in there, we all had to, Rosemary came in training with me too. She decided she was going training too. So we all had the first day there, we had to sew everything on our clothes, have our name in and everything. And we got these uniforms, but we wore it first. It's different than it is now. Now they go to school and stay at home. We stayed right at the nurses' home. And we went right on duty as soon as we were students. We were called probies. And what we did is we just wore the striped uniform with the white apron on. We didn't get a cap or anything for the first 6 months. But we took care of patients and everything, so we get good training there. But you know, and we had the nurses' home. But,
why do you think you wanted to become a nurse? Is that just something you
yeah, I thought so. Yeah, some of the kids from high school that graduated ahead of me had, they had to go down to see their place. And I thought it was
Now, was it pretty unusual with the Depression going on to go for more school instead of just working right away?
Yes, it was. But we got paid for working. We got paid just a little bit a month. But you know what? We bought all our clothes with that. We got dresses for $2.98, and then we were all the same size. We'd all exchange dresses because there weren't too many different sizes in our class. We were all pretty much the same size. So if you had a date one day, we'd change your dress.
Sure. So how did you pay for nursing school?
Well, my father did that. That was what I was going to say. He didn't have much money, but he had a car, and I really appreciated that. He sold his car so I could go on training.
Is that right? He sold his car so you could go to school. That's something.
It was. He was a good man. He had a problem with drinking, but he was a good man. He was good to us. In fact, my mother, we were more afraid of my mother than I was my father. My mother had a little Irish temper. She would be mad if we stayed out late and everything, but my father would come right to the door and say, that's okay, that's okay.
So she was a disciplinarian.
Oh yeah, she was one of the disciplinarians.
Okay, all right. So you went to nursing school in the early 30s and you graduated.
And after a year, Rosemary quit. Well, she didn't quit. She was asked to leave.
Rosemary was asked to leave.
Well, yeah, she was doing is spending all her time with boys. We had a good-looking fellow. That's where they'd find her. And they finally said, I don't think really that you're meant for this job. And so the day that I was on vacation that day, and I was in the bathtub, I remember my mother knocked on the door and she said, you know, Rosemary quit. They expected that I would too then because we were so close, you know, the same age, everything. But I continued on. I didn't let that bother me.
So you weren't distracted by the boys?
No, I wasn't. But we had good times in training. We had a lot of fun in training. We had to be home by a certain time, so we have to sometimes leave the movie before it was over and to be in a nurse's home. But we got a lot of good training because we're on duty all the time, you know. Boy, if we didn't chart right or didn't finish our charting, we were called back because we lived just across the street to finish our job.
So it was a 2-year program, 3 years?
3 years.
So about 1934 or so?
1935 I graduated.
1935, okay. So what did you do once you got out of nursing school?
Then I started working at I took a job at St. Joe's for a short while in the Erie-Nose and Throat area. But then I got a job at Misericordia, and I'd rather work at Misericordia, and I got in nursery. Got
nursery.
Yeah. And then of course, when I started working at Misericordia, I got a call one day when I was working PMs, and my mother said that Papa was sick and Ironwood had this blood clot and he couldn't get out of bed. She wondered if I'd go and take care of him. She thought that would be better. So I had to quit there and go up north to Ironwood again and take care of him, which I did.
Why was your father up in Ironwood?
He was up in Ironwood. He was working for a lumber company up there.
Okay, as an
And,
accountant?
yeah,
was it?
right.
Okay, but your mother stayed back in
Yeah, she
Milwaukee.
didn't want him to go. She needed Iron for some
Okay,
reason.
she didn't, okay.
She stayed in Milwaukee. Yeah, he would come back and forth.
Now, I believe up in Ironwood then, as you were taking care of
Yes,
your
I was
father-
taking care of my father. Then what I would do is I had a basket, and I'd have go in the bus station there. That would have this cheap dinner, 25 cents for a complete dinner, and 5 cents extra for dessert. And I'd fill up a dinner for Papa, and I'd put it in the basket, and then I'd eat, and I'd take the basket home. Every time I went in there, this fellow in this red sweater, like a leather sweater.
Red
Yeah,
sweater.
Red sweater, yeah. And he'd always hello. After a couple of times, he said, saying hello to me. And then I kept saying hello. This one day it was raining real hard. And I got my little basket. I was going to go walk. I just had walk and a half. And he said, could I give you a ride? And I said, well, sure. And I got in the car, and I remember he said, my name is Jim Trudgeon. And I thought, that is a pretty name. I like the name Trudgeon. I should have known right then. And he took me home. And I said, got upstairs, I said to my father, I said, this Jim Trudgeon took me home, but I said, I don't even know how he knew where I lived. But he had been watching me.
Oh.
He'd go to the post office, he'd watch me where I was going, and he knew where I stayed. And that same night he came back to take me out, asked me if I wanted to date with him, and I said, no, I had another date, I was meeting somebody else. But after that he asked me out. We went to some nice dances there.
Okay.
And I got to know a lot of the girls there that were friends of my cousins too, and they would lend me formals for me to go to the Iron Dome for formal dances and everything. We had so many good times in Ironwood.
What attracted you to my grandpa? Your
Oh, well,
husband?
he was a smart individual, for one thing, interesting conversationalist. Although he never talked as much, he talked a lot when he was then he shut up.
He was trying to impress you then once he got you.
I think so.
And,
We had so many good times, yeah, we did.
Yeah, you went dancing a lot?
Oh, yeah,
Did
we
it?
went dancing a lot.
Well, what was he doing up in Ironwood?
He worked for the printing company there.
Okay.
And he would sell printing, and he had something to do with the newspaper there too.
So, how many days do you think before it took that you thought you guys got making married? Was it married?
Just enjoying each other's company. Then we went out, we'd go with other couples there. They were older than I was, but they'd take us out to the lakes, and then we'd go on picnics and stuff. And we had such good times, and a whole bunch of us went over and cleaned Jim's house. He would have it up for sale. So we had to clean it up to get ready for sale. It was his mother's,
Right.
So we got that. We got a whole bunch of people to do that. We had a good time. We got a little beer and enjoyed the whole thing.
Right.
But that was a good time. But then October 1st we got married. Well, then he came.
October 1st,
he came down
1935,
here.
right?
I came home then in July, and then he came down here. But then he couldn't get a job here, so then he had to go. What was that now? He came down here, and I know we had a nice time. We went to dancing this summer to Lake Geneva. They had dancing on Sunday afternoons. But anyway, then he went back to Ironwood. No, then we got married October 1st. Then he went back to Ironwood because he couldn't find a job here. Then he had to leave, but I had my job at Misericordia, so I thought I could earn more money here if we didn't have much money.
Right.
And I worked in the nursery until he came back December 22nd to join us, and then I was going back with him. So I worked in the nursery till then. And he worked at his job, so we had all the money to get. In the meantime, he got a little place for us to live, and picked me up, and it was a nice weather that time. It was so nice at Christmas time that year. Just almost 60, I think, on Christmas Day. They were out playing horseshoes, the fellas were. But anyway, we went back the next day, and we had to pack all our wedding gifts and everything, and then measure it. Jim was measuring everything. We had to take my father, too, so there were three of us in this front seat of this little car.
Yeah.
And we got to Shawano, and it started to snow. It was just terrible. We had to go about 5 miles an hour the rest of the week. We just lost so much time. And friends of ours were going to have us come as soon as we got home because they were going to have dinner for us. I mean, well, they forgot we were in trouble.
Yeah.
But we did go over there afterwards. I think she had desserts for us or something. But we got back there, and he had a nice little place for us to live. It was just above, the names were Sandels. It was just above their place. It was just an apartment they had made. It had woodworker furniture, and it had a living room and
Remember what
bathroom.
street it was on?
No, I can't. I know Art was there. I can't. I've got it. I think written down somewhere. But I have it now. But anyway, we then had a nice big bedroom, and then a pantry or a closet that we used as a pantry because we didn't have a kitchen. So I had a hot plate and that stuff. So that's the way we lived, and we didn't have much money, I'll tell you. But we went to the theater every Sunday night because they gave away money, the chance of winning money. And And then they give you a dish when you go in, you know. We pay a quarter. Well, we didn't have money for, well, if we ate too much, so we had to have ketchup sandwiches because payday was Monday. This was on Sunday night, we had ketchup sandwiches.
So tell me about ketchup sandwiches. I imagine that can just a piece of bread and ketchup.
Butter ketchup. Not bad. When you're hungry. And then we'd go to the show. And then the next night, payday, we'd always have pasties. Dad would come home with pasties.
Sure. Okay.
So then we lived good till the next payday. Then it was bad again.
So you got married.
We always got to the movie anyway.
So you got married on October 1st,
That was a
1935.
beautiful thing. Yeah. And we honeymooned in Madison.
Madison. Okay. What did you say?
We went to see. Oh, I'm trying to think of it. I remember have we seen it. It was one that, and there was a big Marquette game, or a big Wisconsin game going on.
Okay.
Wisconsin Marquette over the weekend, and that was where everybody was staying.
Sure. Okay.
But anyway, we stayed there. But we went to Shirley Temple movie in the afternoon. We took on honeymoon. Shirley Temple movie. It was good. And then we visited friends of his lived there too. We visited them. They had us for dinner.
Now, your father was up in Ironwood taking care of him. You guys first
Yeah,
met.
well, he came back with us then.
Okay.
But then he had to go back to Ironwood and find a job. So he didn't keep his job in there. He had a good job in there.
All right. So you guys got married then in 1935.
Yeah.
And
And then he came home December 22nd. And then I was pregnant. So Sharon was born September 23rd. He came home December 23rd because I got pregnant.
Yeah, I'm doing the math here too.
She was born exactly on time.
Yeah, that's what you always say.
So okay,
So she was a preemie.
so you were still working up to that until you had Sharon at least.
Yeah, pretty much like Sharon. And then not to, how many years did I quit before Sharon was born? And I was in Ironwood. That's right. We lived in Ironwood that whole year before I was pregnant.
Oh.
And then I would take walks, and Ironwood was small. I could take a walk around the whole place. And I was swimming at the end of the auditorium. I love to swim. So I was learning. He was teaching me how to drive off the summit. I had a diving board. This fellow that was there. And then all of a sudden he saw I was pregnant. He said, "We aren't going to do this anymore." So he wouldn't let me actually go swimming, but he didn't want me to dive.
Go dive.
Yeah, that's what he said.
But you had Sharon up in Ironwood.
They all then, what happened too is, I had a wonderful time during pregnancy. I'd take a walk, and then the woman, Sandell, she fixed lemonade in the afternoon. I'd sit on the porch with a book, get to the porch. We had enjoyed my pregnancy there. But then anyway, Virgil, I was wanting to come home to have Sharon. I thought, I can't imagine having Sharon. And Dad's well, to take a chance and finding a job. Well, he found a job, but it wasn't a real good one at first. We didn't have a lot of money, but we just rented. Well, we rented a place like the Bushes had too. We shared a bathroom with people. It was an apartment, a small apartment on 3/5 in Kilburn. It was terrible. We lived there for 3 months, and then we moved to another apartment that was better. But anyway, then after that, we wanted to save money because we wanted to get our own home, or not buy a rent a decent home for us. So William and Lois, they were building that home on Elm Grove on Longwood Avenue. So they said they needed money if we wanted to stay there, pay them rent. And then Lois would take care of Sharon while I worked camps at the hospital.
Okay.
So that really worked out for us. So then that's what we did. And we see that it gave us a good start. Then we found, Sharon was about 11 months old. We found a home on 34th and Burnham. And anyway, we had a lovely flat for $35 a month. It was a beautiful living room, oak, wood and everything. We just loved it. It was so nice. And
So you were still working in the evenings at that point?
then I quit work at home when she was 11 months old. I stayed home with her. But in the meantime, then Jim, who didn't have a good job at first, found a job at Milk Bar Steel. And he didn't have any training for advertising, but he seemed to catch on and do a good job. And then from Milk Bar Steel, he went to Cutler Hammer. But Milk Bar Steel didn't let him go until they found out that he could get a job at Cutler Hammer. Then he got the job because they didn't need him anymore. So anyway, the Cutler Hammer, of course, that's history. He lasted for a long time there.
Right.
He went from advertising to, what do you call it?
Public
relations. Yeah. But anyway, then we got better and better. And then, of course, we had that house there. Then I wanted to move closer to my mother. My mother was on 37th and Garfield. And we found a flat on 41st and Garfield. It wasn't as nice at all as we had on the south side. But we were closer to Mother and Jim Lincoln. We were closer to North Avenue where I was used to the shopping and everything. So we moved in there. But it was a nice flat into that. Our landlord was so good to us because he always if he had the upstairs for rent, he'd always make sure they had kids our kids' ages and they were okay people. He went on. He was so good. And if the kid upstairs, this one time he picked up a kid, Nancy, he was so mad about that. And I said, don't worry, I think Nancy did something before. And sure enough, Nancy had done something to him before that. Because he just was watching out for me and the kids all the time. He was so good to us. So then when they put that house up for sale and he sold it, well, we had 4 kids and we only had 2 bedrooms. We were proud of that too. So
How many kids?
4. Bonnie was a baby when we were there.
Wow, we skipped over a couple of kids here. So Nancy was born after Sharon.
Nancy was born 2 years after Sharon. She was born 2 days. Sharon had her birthday 2 days after Nancy was born. And we were so. I said we didn't have any money. So Dad said, I really would like to get you flowers, but it was Sharon's birthday, and I saw a rocking chair I wanted to get, so we decided on the rocking chair rather than flowers.
Wasn't that nice? Yeah. So
I still see Sharon rocking.
Talk about how many kids you wanted to have, or
He did one time. He said, I think one. He was an only child.
He was only child.
I think one child is enough.
One child is enough.
Yeah,
well, it didn't work out that way, did it?
He gave that up completely. I never heard that again after that.
So you had Nancy and
2 years later, and then Nancy, then Jimmy. That was our first boy. We were so happy with that. We couldn't believe it.
Right.
And then after that, we had Bonnie, and then it was Mark, and then Candy and Patty.
Now,
Mark and Candy were 2 years apart.
Okay. So when my father was born, Jim, it was during World War II.
Yeah, and that's right. We couldn't have visitors. I was at St. Sinai. Anyway, he couldn't have visitors. We couldn't have visitors because he didn't allow them because I don't know, there was this danger of disease or something.
When my father was born.
They didn't have enough help. I don't know, so they couldn't. Yeah, because nobody could come and see me. But I called my mother and I said, "Oh, he's got a dimple." That was my biggest thing. He had the dimple. His dad had dimples, but the girls didn't have them. But he had the big dimple, and it was. So I was so thrilled. I told mother I could still see over the phone. I was saying, "Oh gosh, he's got a dimple." Anyway.
So what was World War II like being in Milwaukee? You had several kids and...
and we were stamp rationing and everything, but I had Bonnie, so I got quite a bit for her, and she really didn't use anything much. So my mother, I could give it to my mother because she wasn't getting much sugar at all, and she loved to bake. And so I'd give her my coupon for sugar. Then I would give out ration stamps at the high school. I worked at Mother would go and take care of the kids, so I could go over there and help with that. We did that. Of course, Jim was busy selling war bonds during that time.
You were selling war bonds?
Yeah, he was. For Keller Hammer, every other Christmas party, he'd have to give a talk, and then he'd have entertainment, and he'd have to give a talk.
Now, were you working with all the kids at
No, I didn't work at all until after Patty and Candy.
Okay, so
Patty was 8th grade.
Okay.
When they opened up there, and I thought, oh my gosh, I'll never get to go back there. I've been gone for so long. But one of my friends, remember, she said you had good OB training at Missouri because at one time that was an all OB hospital. So she said you get the best training there. So I said, okay, I'll try it. And I did a lot of studying beforehand. And then Gorham, my head nurse, said, I don't know how I do it without me. She told some other nurses, I thought, my God, if not this, she said, you couldn't run the department without me. So I really got in there good, and I just enjoyed it so much. And I think I could start, according to what they tell me, I could start to the OB department and care and so forth.
So after the war, where were you living during the war?
We were around 41st and Garfield.
When did you guys move to
Then we moved on. Then we rented a place on the river. We rented a place on the river. Dad thought it was so nice. It was a great big farmhouse, Vanilla Farms. Beautiful area, farm right on the river. It was beautiful. Big house, but all big walls and everything, and big rooms. Like a bathroom was just huge. Everything was just huge in it. And he had to do painting, so he'd go every day and paint. But what he wasn't telling me is that he was catching mice there too.
Catching mice?
Yeah. And
why?
my father,
you wouldn't want to live there?
I didn't care of that. But anyway, my father would go with him some nights. He said, my gosh, he's got so much painting to do. But anyway, we moved there. We got there. We got all set there one night. The night we were going to move in. And I couldn't even take Bonnie's bunting off. I had to keep it on her legs so cold. It didn't heat up the place. No matter how much it heat up the place. It would cost $17.
17 mice? One night?
And we were ready to move out. The kids quite liked it. Because you sit in your high chair and the goats would go past, all these animals would go past. The kids kind of liked it.
So what year was this about?
This was
right
in-
after the war? you said?
Yeah, it was after the war. We moved into that place in Montana. So what happened is my father got on the phone. He was so upset that we had this happen. He said, Dick Voss, he called Dick Voss, Richard's husband. He said, you've got to get busy finding a place for them. This is just terrible, you know. So he took us out that Sunday, and the first place we looked at in Montana, we liked right away and took. And that was so good. We just liked that place. We spent, you know, I'm trying to think what year we moved in there. Well, Bonnie was a baby, so it had to be 1948.
I'm running out of tape there. All right.
Mary, you kept asking it.
I know, never. We don't want to say the date is July 4th, 2006.
1935?
1936.
36. He kept asking about it.